Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio with another solo mode review. Today we're going to be taking a look at It's a Wonderful Kingdom from designer Frédéric Guérard and publisher Lucky Duck. It's a Wonderful Kingdom is a follow-up to a earlier game called It's a Wonderful World, and it shares some similar feelings. You are trying to build up your duchy by producing. It's a card-driven game that's going to allow you to collect resources that you're going to be using to build other cards, which are going to help you collect more resources, an engine building type of a game. Let's head over to the table. I'll show you how the solo game works, then we'll come back here and I'll let you know what I think. Okay, here we see a setup for a solo game of It's a Wonderful Kingdom, and this is really only a 1 or 2 player game, and so I will be talking specifically about the solo mode, although there are a number of similarities between the two. One of the first similarities is that the first thing you really need to do in the game is decide which of the modules you are going to be playing the game with. And so what that means is that you've got this main development deck, which is made up of the core of the cards, but depending upon which module you play, you may be adding other components, cards, things along those lines. So in the base game, you have 3 different modules. You've got the Menace module, and what's nice is that it tells you what the level of interaction and the level of difficulty is. And if you were playing with the Menace module, you would have another whole deck of cards that would be part of the game. Or you might play with the Advisors module, which has a lower level of interaction and a lower level of difficulty, 2 out of 5. And if you were playing with that, then you would have advisor cards that are going to be involved in the game as well. Or you might do what I chose here, which is the Quest module. And for the purposes of just this little overview, it's the easiest to explain and it has the lowest amount of interaction. So you really would want to be looking for what type of experience you wanted to choose which module you have. All right, once you've done that, what you're going to do is you're going to choose a particular duchy card to start with, and they all have an A side. I say all, there are 2 of them, an A side and a B side. They recommend that you start on the A side for your first couple of games. The other thing that is different about the solo game is that instead of trap tokens, you start with 2 spy tokens, one on the unactivated side, one on the activated side. All right, so what you're going to do in the game is play through 4 rounds. The round tracker is right here, and in each of those rounds you are going to be playing through 3 phases. You're going to have the choice phase, the planning phase, and the production phase. In the solo game, the only step that is modified is this first phase, which is the choice phase. Everything else is essentially the same. And so what you're going to do is, one last thing I wanted to mention that is part of setup is that you've got what's called a danger deck over here. The danger deck is made up of 8 cards from this deck, which are basically all good cards you're either going to try to build, develop, or recycle, and treasure cards, and also 4 of these calamity cards, which are not good. If they are in your duchy at the end of the game, they are worth -4 points. You don't want them if you can help it. So there are 12 total cards there, 4 of them being calamity cards, 8 of them being cards from this deck. They've been shuffled and placed there ready to go. The last thing I do want to mention is that for this particular module, you're playing a quest, and there are 3 different quests that you could use. These are the single-sided boards. There's a 2-sided there. I just happen to choose the Usurper. It doesn't necessarily matter. They're just different objectives you are trying to reach. And the thing to know about this particular quest module is that you can do these in any order, and you don't have to do any of them except for this 4th one. To be able to win the game, to be able to even have a winning condition, you have to be able to do this 4th one, which in the case of the Usurper here is vanquish the renegade army. You have to pay 15 soldier tokens, and you also would gain 2 Crystallium. Yes, Crystallium, if you were able to do this before the beginning of the last round. All right, so this is over here. You've got your little markers to denote when you have completed any of them. Again, they can be done in any order, and the only one that needs to be done is that last one. All right, so in the choice phase, what you're going to be doing is you've got 2 offering areas. All right, and you're going to be placing, actually this, sorry, should be face up. There we go. All right, you're going to be placing 2 into the offering areas. All right, so we'll put these 2 cards here, and we'll place these 2 cards here. All right, and then at this point, you are going to select one of those 2 areas, and you're going to put it into your selection area. And in whatever area you did not select, you're going to add a card from the danger deck. All right. Okay, so let's say, for example, that I know that for me at the end of the game, these blue cards are going to be worth 2, and I see that there's one right here, so maybe I'll just go ahead and take these and put them into my selection area. All right, so now I would take a card from this danger area face down and place it there. Could be good, could be bad, and then I refill this. And I'm going to be doing this 4 times. Now, let's say that I do potentially want that because I'm getting 3 cards. I could spend one of my spy tokens, flip it over to flip this card over and see, aha, that's not bad. I'll go ahead and take those. All right. I'm adding all these to my selection area. I'm putting a danger card here. I'm refilling. Again, you're doing this 4 times. Let's just say that I went ahead and did that again. That was 3. I put one up here, and I put 2 more. And let's just say that I'll go ahead and take these. All right. Once you have done the choice phase, doing that kind of thing 4 times, you're then going to be going into the production phase. There's one last thing I wanted to mention is that during this choice phase, you do have the option of a search once per round. As soon as you have selected an offering, you can discard 2 of the face-up cards from the area to look at the top 3 of the deck, choose one to place in the offering, and discard the other. Okay? Now we go to the planning phase. Sorry, I said production phase. We're in the planning phase. It is at this point that all of these cards, I'm just going to move my duchy out. All of these cards, I'm going to put them just up in camera here so you can get a better view of them. All of the face down cards will get flipped up. Thankfully, that's not a calamity card. So now I've got all of these cards that during planning, I'm going to choose to do one of 2 things with. I'm either going to slate it for production or I'm going to recycle it. All right, so if you look at these cards, there's a few things to take note of. One is what they will produce during the production phase. If you have this in your duchy, it's going to produce 3 materials during the production phase. It's also going to give you an immediate bonus of 3 soldier tokens when you complete the production, which is good because I know I need at least 15 by the 4th round at the latest, at the end of the 4th round, to even be eligible to win. To be able to construct this card, I'll need 2 of the purple cubes, 3 of the yellow cubes. All right, so if I want to put this in production, I just would move it into a production area. If I wanted to recycle it, what I would do is simply discard the card and get whatever material that is denoted here in this spot, which would be a material. All right. So let's say that for the purposes of this, I'm just going to go ahead and place this into my production area. I am going to go ahead and place this into my production area. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to recycle this. Actually, I'll recycle this card, which shows a purple cube. So I would discard it. I would get a purple cube that I can do one of 2 things with. I can either put it into one of the cards into my production area, like maybe I go ahead and put it there, or I could put it onto my duchy. And anytime I have 5 cubes here, they get transmuted into crystallium, which is the red cube, which is wild. It can count as anything. So for all of these cards, I'm either going to keep them, put them for production, or I'm going to recycle. Like there's a blue I'll recycle to place right here. I know I need yellows for this, so here's something I could do right here. I've got 2 yellows here. Actually, I've got 3 yellows here that I can recycle. So let's say I recycle all 3 of these yellows. All 3 of these go right here. Boom, boom, boom. I could recycle either of these for the purple. Actually, I'll recycle both. Purple and purple, and now I've got a card that is already complete. This alchemical force has been completed. I immediately am going to gain 3 of the soldier tokens, so I'll go ahead and take those and put them on my duchy card. And now I've got a new card that's going to go right here that's going to add to my production. And I've got 2 cards that are still under production for later rounds. All right, so that's what you do during planning. Now, during planning, what you're going to do is you are going to go in order that it shows on the board and produce any of the materials that are denoted there. All right, so starting with the materials, I actually now am producing 6. I have 2 of those 6 that I can place right there, and the other 4 are going to go onto my duchy card. This is now complete. All right, those back. This goes right here. Now, I didn't get it in time for that material, but now we're going to purple, and I now have a purple that I can produce. It doesn't fit on this card. I put it here. I now have 5 cubes here that I can transmute to crystallium, which I can keep this one here, or I know I need it for this card. Let's just go ahead and put it right there. Then we go to yellow. I'm not producing any yellows. We go to blue. I produce 1 blue, which can go right. Oops, not the yellow. The blue can go right there. All right? You're doing this production. The other thing that you're going to do is you're going to be checking for a supremacy bonus, okay? And a supremacy bonus in the solo game is only triggered if you produce at least 5 of a resource this round. Well, I did. I produced 5 of the materials, and so I can take 1 of these soldier tokens and place it on either side of the board. And then when that happens, if that happens again, I take it and put it into my supply, okay? And then again, at any point, you can be triggering the effects of these. So you can pay 5 soldiers to discard up to 2 calamity cards that you might have in your duchy. You could pay 4 purple to gain 2 crystallium, 5 yellows to gain 4 of the soldier tokens, and then again, that last one, which you have to do to be considered successful at the end of the game. All right, you're going to go through that process of the choice and the planning and the production until you go through 4 rounds, and then you're going to go through final scoring. If you used the A side of your duchy like I did here, you have to subtract 15 victory points because that's the easier side. You're also going to be gaining points for the cards that you are producing in your duchy through those 4 rounds, subtracting any points from the calamity cards. There are other cards that might give you endgame scoring depending upon what comes out. And then you are going to compare your final score to the matrix at the end of whatever particular module you're playing, like in this case, the quest. Your bronze medal is in this score range, silver medal in this score range, gold medal in that score range. All right, well, that's the basics on how you play. Let's head back over and I'll let you know what I think. All right, well, hopefully that gives you an idea on how It's a Wonderful Kingdom works in the solo game. This is a 1 or 2 player only game, and so I showed you primarily how the solo works, although the multiplayer is not tremendously different from that. All right, well, first thing I want to do is talk about some solo benchmarks. These are some high-level ideas that I like to discuss and consider when I'm deciding which solo game to get off the shelf. The first is win-loss condition. Is this a beat your high score variant? Is this playing against an AI opponent? And in It's a Wonderful Kingdom, what you're doing is you are playing to a score matrix, kind of a gold, silver, and bronze medal. So you're trying to reach a particular scoring plateau or scoring condition to figure out how well you've done in the game. In this game, I have no problem with that. This is a game that I feel kind of lends itself to that. You're just trying to build up points. I feel like if you were playing against an AI opponent, you probably could make it work. I think there would be ways to set up an opponent that is going to be getting cards, and maybe you can kind of get an idea of what their cards are, and you can play, you know, where you try to have more points than them. But in a game like this where you've got different modules, that would entail that you're having to handle the AI opponent differently in each one of those. I'm not sure that the payoff for that would be worth the extra administration involved. So no problem with the win-loss conditions in It's a Wonderful Kingdom. Setup and teardown is another thing I like to discuss, and there's a little bit. There's I would say a reasonable amount of setup and teardown. It's not simply get out a deck of cards and start playing. There is a little bit that you have to do. You have to create the danger deck. You have to figure out which module you're going to play and integrate any of the components from that module in. But you're not talking more than maybe 5 minutes. I feel like that's a reasonable amount of time to set up and tear down the game for a game that is of this length. It's not the longest game, but I don't think that the setup is terribly long either, so it's not a problem in that sense. The other thing I like to mention is rules, and I found the rules to be clear. You've got the basic rules of the game. Then you've got the modules for each of the 3 modules and how they kind of change up the game. And within each of those, you've got how the solo variant plays in. So there's essentially 3 kind of main sections of the rule book. The main core rules, explained well, I think pretty clear. Then you've got the solo rules, which explain those differences, the spy tokens, how the choose phase of the game changes, which is really the only part that changes of any real import. And then within those modules, you've got more rules. I felt like all 3 of them did a fine job. I didn't find any real ambiguities. I learned just from the rule book, and so I don't have anything negative to say about it. I feel like it did a good job of that. Something that I do also want to mention is that within the rule book there are some solo scenarios that you can play too that kind of add more to the solo experience, and so I appreciate that as well. Okay, the next thing I want to discuss are art and components. First of all, the things I liked, and then something I felt was maybe not as good. First is that just overall, I feel like the game has stellar art. I really think that the graphic design of the cards, very similar to It's a Wonderful World, and the art is also very similar. So if that game's art and aesthetic and iconography was appealing to you, then you will also find that here. And it was for me, and it's still, I feel, a very good looking game. The cubes are, nice and tactile. It's nice to have those cubes that you can kind of place on your cards. And so that's a satisfying tactile component in the game. The only real negative I can really think of is that some of the cardboard quality is a bit inconsistent. There are certain aspects of the cardboard components that are very thick and satisfying. Those trap tokens and the spy tokens, very oversized and thick, and the soldier tokens are also over thick. They feel double or triple thick. And then you've got other tokens like the round marker and the quest tokens that are just standard, and I don't know that I would even notice them if the other ones weren't so thick and satisfying feeling, but I just figured I would mention that, a little bit of inconsistency there. All right, overall solo experience. First, I will talk about maybe something that didn't work as well, and then the things that I liked. The negative that comes to mind is that this may feel a little bit short, those 4 rounds. They might feel a little bit short depending upon what type of engine building experience you're looking for. There are certain games, and I think of one, for example, like Furnace, which is a very short engine building game. But by the end of it, you have built up a large number of cards that are really kind of comboing off of each other. This is a game that is a similar length, but it doesn't have quite that same level of engine building. So if that's the main hook, if that's the thing you're coming into the game for, just be aware that you may not have that long extended building up of this engine and then boom, it fires and it does a whole bunch of stuff. By the end of the 4th round, you're going to have a large number of cards in your duchy. I mean, that's probably just a given. But what they're really doing is kind of producing more of those resources so you can get the bigger, higher scoring buildings. They're not really going to give you maybe the engine building that some other games do in this type of sphere. So just be aware of that depending upon what you're looking for in this game. If you like resource management and resource conversion, this has a whole lot of that, and it does have engine building, but it's just maybe not to the level of some other games. Now, the things I really do like is that I really enjoy the modular nature of the game. I like how there's kind of this core mechanism, the 3 phases of those 4 rounds, and that's going to stay constant. But also you have these modules, and they're going to change the interactivity of the game, the level of complexity of the game, the decision space of the game, so to speak, is going to be tailored based upon which module you choose and which module you're looking for. And I like that. And I also appreciate that as a solo player in this solo review, that the solo mode is supported in all of those modules. Now, I believe that this version that I've been playing is the retail version. I also believe it did go to Kickstarter. I don't know if there are more modules, and I don't know, if so, how solo plays into those. I can only speak to the 3 modules that I have been exposed to here. But I like that kind of element of the game. The other thing I like is that it feels enough like It's a Wonderful World, but just optimized to smaller player counts, that if you liked the game It's a Wonderful World, but didn't feel like the two-player count was very satisfying, this might be really what you're looking for. It has a different central mechanism, but it still retains some of the feel, some of the satisfaction of building those cards. But it does it in a way that is very interactive in a one, or even in a one-player game, you have some of the interaction built in, but in a two-player game as well. So I like that it retains enough of the feel that you can say, hey, yeah, this is a successor to It's a Wonderful World, but it's its own game, and it's very well built for a small player count of 1 or 2. I also think that the danger deck and those spy tokens are a nice way to handle the solo version of the I split, you choose, and the trap mechanisms that are there in the two-player game. So you're having a very similar experience, I feel, in the solo game. Of course, there are going to be some differences when you're playing against a human opponent as to whether, they're going to be, what their trap is, are they bluffing you, those type of things. You don't exactly get that with the danger deck, but there's enough there that I feel like it is a nice nod to it while still being true to what works in a solo game. So all of that being said, I feel like It's a Wonderful Kingdom is a very well implemented solo version of a two-player game, essentially. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, a strong seal of approval. I feel like this is one that really does what it sets out to do. Gives you that kind of satisfying engine building experience in a very short period of time, and in the solo game is able to replicate that central mechanic in a way that still feels satisfying. All right, well, that's it for me. This is Mike DiLisio signing off from Dice Tower headquarters.